going on in terms of the United States' relationship to Nicaragua, of course, has nothing to do with Nicaragua. The nature of the conflict that now exists is based on the fact that for the last 150 years or so, the United States government, in its wisdom, has decided that Latin America should be a colony of the United States government, and that countries which attempt to stand up and do things for their own people rather than for American corporations are not to be tolerated. What's going on in Nicaragua today, it's not important to get into all the details of whether the Sandinistas are right or wrong on this issue. If we understand that in the last 30 years, the United States has overthrown governments in Guatemala, Dominican Republic, they murdered Salvador Allende in Chile, they've overthrown the government of Grenada, they attempted to overthrow the government of Cuba, they overthrew a government of Brazil, and now they are attempting to overthrow the government of Nicaragua. The basic crime being committed by the people of Nicaragua today is that the government there has the strange and unusual idea that they should attempt to do something for the people of Nicaragua rather than for the United States corporations. It's a very strange idea for an independent nation to have. And if the history of the United States' relationship to Latin America for the last 50 years, which is Somoza, yes, Ortega, no, Batista, yes, Castro, no, and we are not prepared to accept this nation dominating poor nations and weak nations who are trying to do decent things.
So throughout our history, we have overthrown many, many governments. In the case of Chile in 1973, what you had is an election in which a guy named Salvador Allende won the election. Problem is, Nixon and his friends didn't like him. Why? Because Salvador Allende fought for the poor people and the working people of that country. He believed that the resources of Chile, their copper mines and so forth, should belong to the people. And he won a free election. He was overthrown by the CIA and corporate interest, because corporate interest preferred, of course, that the United States companies dominate that country. And a lot of what politics is about, going way, way back to the 19th century, through England, France, is the domination of colonies so that big companies in a given country can take the resources of those countries for their own use.
You've criticized then Senator Clinton's vote. Do you have anything to criticize in the way she performed as Secretary of State?
I think we have a disagreement. The disagreement is that not only did I vote against the war in Iraq, if you look at history, John, you will find that regime change, whether it was in the early 50s in Iran, whether it was toppling Salvador Allende in Chile, whether it is overthrowing the government of Guatemala way back when, these invasions, these toppling of governments, regime changes, have unintended consequences. I would say that on this issue, I'm a little bit more conservative than the Secretary.
All right.
And that I am not a great fan of regime change.
Senator, let me